Welcome back to GH Updates, your go-to spot for all the drama, revelations, and explosive secrets from General Hospital. Buckle up, because the episode airing on Monday, June 2nd, 2025, is nothing short of a seismic shakeup in Port Charles. Let's break it all down. General Hospital will reveal at the height of an increasingly bitter custody battle between Michael and Willow. No stood at a dangerous moral crossroads, one that tested not only her loyalty as a mother, but also the very foundation of her conscience. Outwardly, she maintained the illusion of being a devoted and concerned parent, someone who only wanted the best for her daughter and grandchildren. But beneath that polished facade, Nina was quietly harboring a betrayal so cold and calculated it would change the trajectory of several lives. She had seen firsthand the deceit that Drew had cloaked himself in. How he paid off a nurse to falsify records, manipulated narratives to paint himself in a favorable light, and ultimately pushed Willow into trusting a version of fame that was nothing more than a fabrication. Na knew the truth about Drew. She had uncovered the cracks in his image, witnessed the subtle acts of coercion and emotional control, and she understood with chilling clarity that this man was not the protector Willow believed him to be. And yet, despite this damning knowledge, Shakuza silence. For a time, Nina had convinced herself that she would intervene, not only to expose Drew's deception, but to help Willow break free from the toxic entanglement with Michael as well. With Willow and Michael's marriage in decline, marked by mutual distrust and the shadows of betrayal, Nina viewed this as a rare opportunity to reclaim her daughter's future and redefine what family could mean. She believed she could sever Willow's connection to Michael and redirect her away from Drew's manipulations. But everything shifted when she uncovered an even more explosive was pregnant with Michael's child. That revelation to detonate the entire custody case, to tilt the scales dramatically in favor of Willow, if used strategically. Instead of arming her daughter with the truth, instead of using that information as leverage to protect her grandchildren from the chaos surrounding them, made the most devastating choice of all. She said nothing. The decision wasn't rooted in fear, but rather in design. Na understood that revealing Michael's paternity of Sasha's unborn child would cast him in a hypocritical light. A man fighting tooth and nail for custody of Wei and Amelia, while simultaneously aiding a secret family with another woman. The court of law and public opinion would not look kindly on such duplicity. Rick could use this information to destroy Mikkel's credibility, sway the judge, and ultimately secure full custody for Willow. But Nina, for reasons that even Sheriffist to confront honestly, allowed Michael to remain protected. Whether it was remnants of emotional latent strategic alignment, or a deeply flawed sense of control, Nina hollowed herself to become complicit in a scheme that betrayed everything she claimed to stand for. Her silence was not passive. It was weaponized. She became the guardian of a truth that could have set Willow free, and instead it to maintain the status quo, to prevent upheaval, and to silent Liverchester a future in which she believed she could maintain influence. The result was catastrophic. Michael, unencumbered by the explosive truth of his involvement witches, sailed through the custody proceedings with a polished image of stability and dedication. The court, unaware of the hidden scandal, granted him full custody of Wei and Amelia, leaving Willow not only devastated, but stripped of her most sacred role as a mother actively present in her children's lives. Worse still, the collapse of her personal life, fluffy. The facade that Drew had maintained finally crumbled under threat of scrutiny. His lies unraveled one after another. From the manipulated medical testimonial to the withheld communications about Willow's journey to Germany. What hadn't seemed like noble intentions were revealed to be tactical maneuvers aimed at consolidating control. Willow's trust, already fragile, shattered. But perhaps the most painful revelation came not from Drew's betrayal, but from Na's discovering that her own mother had known everything, that she had held the key to reversing the court's decision and chose. Instead, to protect Michael sent Willow into a tailspin of grief, rage, and confusion. Na's betrayal wasn't simply a moment of silence. It was the abandonment of a daughter when she needed her most, was the erasure of maternal duty, the forfeiting of unconditional support in favor of political calculation. Willow was left to reckon, not only with legal loss of her children, but also with the emotional devastation of knowing she had no true ally in the very person who had once promised to always fight for her. As the dust settled on the courtroom decisions and the truth about Drew's manipulations became public knowledge, Nina's role remained buried, at least for now. But guilt is not a quiet companion. Tifa's, iteratus. Nina could see the distance in Willow's eyes, the guardedness that had replaced warmth, the silence that hadn't been filled with trust and laughter. Even in victory, Michael could feel the fragility of what he had won, haunted by the knowledge that his deception, enabled by others, had cost more than any iron to sight. And somewhere in Port Charles, Sasha carried not only the weight of a child, but the burden of a secret that was never hers to keep and never hers to tell. Her silence too had consequences, and the child she carried would one day grow into a symbol of all that had been broken and buried. The tragedy then was not just in what was done, but in what was knowingly left undone, in the hands not extended, the truths not spoken, the justice not sought. And for Willow, that realization thought the people she loved most had each played a part in her unraveling was through wound that would never fully heal. Meanwhile, Michael, once seen as the likely loser in a bitter and chaotic legal battle, emerged as the unexpected victor, not through the strength of his character or the clarity of his arguments, but through the calculated lens of others. Na's refusal to reveal the truth, coupled with Sasha's ski compliance and Jason's continued artisan in the paternity leak, created the perfect illusion for the court. Michael appeared as a dedicated, stable, and honest father, a man who prioritized the well-being of his children over personal highs. The ambiguity surrounding the paternity of Sasha's unborn child, Becca, hidden legal asset, an invisible shield that protected Michael from scrutiny. No one could produce irrefutable proof. Michael was leading a double life, and the carefully maintained deception proves his image in front of the judge and jury. Ironically, the one woman who had the power to destroy Michael's case with a single admission was the very person who enforced his victory, driven not by loyalty to him, but by her own fears, resentments, and personal agenda. Na, entangled in her obsession to control the outcomes of the people around her, seemed to lose all sense of moral clarity. She no longer recognized the line between protecting her daughter and manipulating her fate. In her mind, allowing Michael to win custody meant creating a barrier between Willow and Drew, the man she so deeply despised. Na convinced herself that this was the lesser evil, that in the long run, will be better off separated from Drew, regardless of the emotional cost. But what she failed to anticipate was their irreversible damage her silence would cause. When the truth inevitably came to light, that Nina had sat on explosive information and chosen not to share it the very moment her daughter needed her most, every remaining thread of their fragile relationship would snap. The rift that already existed between mother and daughter would widen into a chasmos too vast a bridge. There are betrayals that are irreservable, that can be softened by time you're reconciled through apologies. But this was not one of them. For Willow, the knowledge that her own mother had withheld the one piece of truth that could have changed the entire outcome of the custody hearing felt like the ultimate. At the center of this tangled web was Sasha, unwitting, vulnerable, and deeply conflicted. She had never intended to be a catalyst for a courtroom war, nor had she imagined her pregnancy would become the axis around which lives would unravel. She believed she was protecting Michael by keeping his secret, preserving his chances at fatherhood in the eyes of the court. But in doing so, she unwittingly contributed to the dismantling of another woman's future. Sasha was led to believe her silence, whilst an act of compassion, when in truth it became a tool of devastation. She remained blissful that both Michael and Na were using her condition as a silent weapon in their separate but equally destructive. Michael, for his part, lived in constant turmoil. On the surface, he had gained full custody, emerged from the courtroom with his reputation intact, and secured a future with his children. But beneath that calm exterior, he was unraveling. Each day that passed without acknowledging the truth about Sasha's baby was another day spent deceiving thievery people he claimed to protect. Hayhoe once believed that protecting Sasha's privacy was the noble choice, but the weight of that secret now threatened to crush the integrity he prided himself on. The temptation to come clean gnawed at him, but so did the fear of losing everything he had just regained. The prospect of Wei and Amelia being taken away, of his parental rights being stripped due to the discovery of hidden paternity, was too great a risk. Even Jason, Michael's most trusted confidant and surrogate father figure, began to question the morality of their agreement. He had stood by Michael, maintained the paternity lie, and shielded Sasha from scrutiny because of a promise. But the situation had evolved beyond a simple protective gesture. Jason watched as Willow's life fell apart. As Drew was publicly children were shuffled like pieces in a legal chessboard. He began to question whether his loyalty had gone too far. As each player in this silent war wrestled with their choices, the true cost of deception came into focus. Nonchalance, though seemingly benign on the surface, was a calculated move that altered the course of multiple lives. Sasha's desire to protect was twisted into a mechanism of betrayal. Michael's fear of exposure led him to forsake a transparency, and Jason's promise of support turned into a chain that bound him to moral ambiguity. And in the middle of it all stood Willow, stripped of her children, her tryst shattered, her support system dismantled. She had been betrayed knowingly by the man she had once loved and the friend she had counted on, but by his mother, who was supposed to be her advocate, her protector, her unwavering ally. The courtroom battle may have ended in Michael's legal victory, but the emotional battlefield told a different story, one of fractured relationships, decaying trust, and irreversible damage. And as the truth loomed ever closer, like a ticking time bomb, threatening to explode, each person involved had to confront the inevitable question: what happens when the lies we tell to protect people we love become the very things that destroy them? The truth, no matter how deeply buried, cannot remain hidden forever. Its fierce insolence grows beneath the weight of denial and waits for the inevitable moment when it can no longer be contained. And when that moment arrives, when the first cries of Sasha's newborn pierce the sterile air of Port Charles General Hospital, when the paternitists are processed and filed into the hospital's database, or when Sasha, worn thin by guilt and overwhelmed by the pressure of carrying such a devastating secret, finally confesses the full extent of what she knows, the illusions so carefully crafted by lies and omissions will begin to shatter. The ripple effect will be immediate and no one will be spared. The chain reaction that follows will not merely re-riddle legal documents or shift custody agreements. It will redefine our relations, destroy reputations, and permanently stain the legacies of those who believe they could manipulate the truth to serve their own ends. And standing at the epicenter of this emotional earthquake will be Nina, who once believed that silence was a form of protection, that withholding the truth was an act of strategy rather than betrayal. But when that silence is exposed for what it truly is, a calculated decision to betray her daughter in the name of control, Nina will stand to lose everything. She Willow's Willow, the daughter she fought so hard to reconnect with after years of estrangement. Any remaining threads of maternal trust will be severed beyond repair. Willow will see not just a mistake in judgment, but a deliberate betrayal. A mother who knew the truth and chose not to act when it mattered most. The bond they rebuilt, already strained, will collapse under the weight of shattered expectations and irreversible damage. Na will also lose her place in the lives of her grandchildren, the very children she claimed to protect through her silence. Wei and Amelia will be emotionally shielded from her by Amathor, who no longer trusts her presence. Family events, milestones, and daily moments will become painful reminders of what Nena forfeited. She will become a ghost in the lives of those she once called family. Not because she was exiled, but because she removed herself with every lie she allowed to stand, and more than anything, Nina will lose the image of herself that she has clung to for so long. The persona of a woman who makes your choices for the greater good, hoax the line between flawed and fierce with conviction. That identity will crumble when her actions are exposed. Revealing a woman, driven not by love or protection, but by obsession, manipulation, and fear, she will be forced to confront the reality that she did not act as a mother or protector, but as a strategist in a war that demanded no casualties, but created many. In the courtroom of public opinion and private heartbreak, victories are rarely clean, and the scales of justice are often weighed beyond seen hands. Michael may have won custody, but that victory is poisoned, fragile, and contingent upon a lie that will soon be exposed. Sasha, once complicit by default, may become the reluctant whistleblower who sets the reckoning in motion, forverching the course of not just her own life, but the lives of everyone tied to this deception. Jason, who chose loyalty over transparency, will face the moral consequences of enabling a lie that devastated a woman he once swore to protect. But perhaps the most tragic element is that the person most deeply affected, the one who has lost not only legal rights but personal peace, is Willow. A woman who walked into a courtroom hoping for justice and walked out with nothing but silence from those she trusted most. She didn't just lose her children that day. She lost her mother, her partner, and her faith in the people around her. And when the truth finally rises, as it always does, it will be a vindication that comes too late. A justice that cannot restore what has already been broken. In the shadowy theater of courtrooms and whispered secrets, Theons who believe silence is safety are often the ones who fall thy hardest. Eyeless silence is never neutral. It sides with the oppressor. It shelters guilty, and it steals from thine innocent the chance to fight back. Nina believed her silence gave her power. What she failed to understand was that it was a ticking time bomb, counting down to the moment when everything she thought she had under control would atone it, destroying not just her carefully crafted plans, but the very soul of the family she claimed to love. Because in the end, the courtroom's verdict may grant custody, but it cannot grant peace. And when the dust settles sand, the truth emerges. Those who place their trust in silence will find themselves surrounded, not by victory. What a whirlwind of emotion, betrayal, and bombshell revelations. Monday's episode promises to change the lives of Port Charles residents forever. Will Michael recover from Sasha's revelation? Will Nina's secrets destroy her credibility? And is this really the end for Curtis and Portia? One thing's for sure, General Hospital is just getting started. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to GH Updates for your daily dose of drama. We'll be right here, bringing you every twist, every turn, and every unforgettable moment. Until next time, stay tuned, Port Charles fans.